Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Yes, Mr. Jide joins us this morning. He's a public policy analyst among several other caps. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
My pleasure.
Well, quite a number of things played out this week, and two of them really yesterday, some key ones. The doctors, they've been on strike. In fact, they're still on strike. It's a one-week strike, 1 week warning strike. And then ASU themselves met with the federal government over this, I think when they called the amount, we couldn't deal because it was a lot. Been billions, as a matter of fact. And the government trying to sort it out. The next meeting is September 6th. But for that one of NARD, not even forgetting labor. So that also when Mr. Joe went into the police yesterday. But let's start off with the doctors. Yesterday, the government said they've activated this no work, no pay rule. As much as they're doing what they can to ensure the release of the kidnapped doctor's colleague, but they had no choice than to activate the no work, no pay rule for the period that the doctors will be on strike for. How does this decision come across to you?
It's a catch-22 situation. Each time I reflect on this strike, whether warning strike, interim strike, or protracted strike, I recall the loss of my younger sister at University of Ibadan, University College Hospital Ibadan. They were on a warning strike like this for 1 week. She was on admission, awaiting a heart transplant in 2017. And incidentally, they asked all the inpatients to be discharged, forcefully discharged. There's somebody that her health is very fragile. It was just this 1 week strike they were talking about then. And we eventually lost her because by the time we took her to Babcock University Teaching Hospital, it was too late. She was in the intensive care unit and died the day after. Was there justification for this warning strike? Yeah, good reason. Insecurity of medical personnel. But should it have been 1 week? I think a day or two, maximum 3 days, could have been the ideal. Don't forget, every life matters. One day, there are people scheduled for medical procedures. There are people who have emergency medical, who needs emergency medical attention. In this 1 week, you are staying off work. Not because government is owing you. You are saying somebody who was, excuse me, who was abducted 8 months ago must be rescued. It doesn't take 1 week to draw government attention to your challenge. I understand perfectly well. We are all human beings. I would not want to be in abductor's kitty. Neither will I want any member of my family. But the point is, let's look at the collateral damage of being on strike for 1 week and still expected to be paid. Because for that 1 week that you are off strike, there are many deaths that will be recorded. There are people whose situation will go from bad to worse. Already we have severe shortfall in the number of medical personnel. You know the numbers. Many are living in droves to UK, to Europe, to Middle East, in search of greener pasture. It's the incumbent Minister of Health that is trying to initiate policies that will attract this medical personnel back. But I know government needs to do a lot more. It's not just medical personnel. To make every one of us secure. You cannot be a doctor in the hospital and you are afraid for your own life. And I've listened to one of the executive of NARD who said that in time past, there used to be a police post in hospitals, but they are no longer there. So bandits just have a field day. They are looking for medical personnel who will be treating patients that they adopt inside the jungle. So it speaks to the national calamitous situation of insecurity that we are facing.
What about the states in this regard? So are we suggesting, or does it mean that the states themselves cannot weigh in at that point, because the hospital can, one way or the other, find a way to have probably their own internal arrangement or internal security, even if it may not achieve the desired effect, but you have to have something. Do you think that as a people, we, all of us, are we really doing enough, including worship centers, our personal houses? Do you think we still have a mindset change as to what we need to do about taking care of at least your personal security? Put some measures in place.
Chamberlain, I don't want us to blame the victim. We are all victims. I think it's Professor Isidore Okwewu. He used to lecture in the Department of English Language, University of Ibadan. He wrote a book, The Victims. Every one of us in this country are victims, except maybe the people we call the political class, the political elite. Because what more do you want me to do? In my hood, we hired a gatekeeper come security man. The hood itself has some hired, security men. And there are police stations all over, but not well equipped. You need to see the parallel state of resources that are at our police institutions. Many years ago, I was on, somebody hit me from the back, and we eventually had to go to the police station. Do you know I have to pay for stationery to write statement? For them to give me stationery to write statement of what happened. As at that time, they don't even have. I'm not sure they do have now. So you have a whole divisional police office that has only one operational vehicle. Of course, I'm not saying that government has been akimbo, but they're just not doing it enough. Yeah. And I believe we are also not prioritizing, we are getting our priorities wrong. That is why things are falling apart. It's not like there has not been any serious or improved funding for security sector, but it has become an honeypot where some people just make mega bucks for themselves.
Yeah, but Mr. Joe, the concept of what I'm trying to explain is that we didn't wait for government before we dug our boreholes to give us water in the house. We didn't wait for government, in some cases, to pour certain things on the road where there are potholes to make sure you're able to pass. And for almost everybody else, they are their own local government chairman.
Unto themselves.
They pay for almost everything by themselves.
Is that the ideal?
That's the principle of what I'm asking, because if we cannot, after doing all of that, we can't do a little more for our own personal security. Of course, you know that if you're going to wait for certain things to happen, you might wait perpetually forever. Of course, they have to do what they have to do, the government. But I'm only asking, from what you've seen, have we done just a little bit more to make sure, look, you and your family, do what you can to be safe?
And I'm responding that at individual and family level, we are doing our level best. That's why I give you instances in my own situation. Personally, our house is gated. We hired a gatekeeper come security man. The neighborhood itself has another layer of security. But you see, you can only do to the extent of availability of your resources. If you want to have a CCTV camera in your house, and we have also seen that these are, when they meant to come for you, all of these things doesn't even help you. Because if you meet the daredevil ones amongst them, look, why are politicians going about in treated vehicles, in bulletproof vehicles? When they attacked when Ifeanyi Uba was attacked on his way to his Inewe home, about 6 or 7 people were murdered, policemen inclusive. When they attacked Apostle John Suleiman in Edo, about 5, 6 people allegedly were killed. He was lucky to be in a bulletproof vehicle. Do you have one? Do I have one? Does she have one?
It's a security matter. I can't disclose that.
Yeah, no. Do you know what it costs to buy one? And what I'm saying is that our government is not doing enough. Our government is not doing enough. You cannot expect us. Okay, should doctors be wearing bulletproof vest to attend to patients? Shouldn't the hospital have some security measures, including CCTV cameras in the consultation room? Or is it consulting?
Dr. wasn't taken from the hospital, was she? She was taken from her home.
Yeah, I think within that vicinity.
Yeah, her home was within the vicinity, but she was taken from her home.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that whether she was taken from her home or from the hospital, the point is government isn't doing enough to protect you and I. So
should that no work, no pay rule apply?
I think government needs to temper justice with mercy. In this particular instance, yes, allow this to slide. But what I've read in some of the headlines, may means probably. But I think it will gladden my heart if that lady ophthalmologist could be rescued. 8 months after, she must have been so thoroughly traumatized. I don't know whether she will be able to adjust to normal life, even if she's rescued today. But every life matters. And you should know that ours is not just an isolated instance. I've seen a long list of people, medical personnel that have been abducted, including professors.
In fact, many people from the National Association of Resident Doctors believe that they are being targeted. You know, listening to the NAD president here just a few days ago, that was what his fear was, and that's the fear of a lot of doctors. We're being targeted and not enough is being done to protect us. So the only way we can get the government's attention, and I did ask these questions at the time, we tried to find out, how do you juxtapose, your Hippocratic oath with watching patients die because of something that's happening to one of your colleagues? And they were like, look, we're at wit's end. We're at a point where this is the only choice we have to get the government to listen to us. We don't like it. We don't like the fact that our patients are suffering, but someone needs to protect us. We are being targeted.
But I disagree that it has to be a week long. I think maximally 2-3 days should have passed the message. You see, lives lost cannot be recalled. It's like words spoken. Nobody is documenting how many lives have been lost across various hospitals as a result of this. Yeah. And if today this lady is rescued, as we have learned that the Office of National Security Advisor is on it, and that brings me to one thing. It will be like it's only Office of National Security Advisor that we have a security architecture that can do the almost impossible. So, can we have that replicated across, even if it's geopolitical zones, so that it's not just having to come to Abuja? Because what we learned was that those 20 medical students that were rescued last week, it was through the intervention of the ONSA, Office of National Security Advisor, with very high caliber technological devices. They were able to monitor, intercept, communications and all of that. If we have that at a zonal level, so that when things happen, you just don't, because there could be a long waiting list of everybody coming to Abuja, please, Office of National Security, and before you know it, some people will start corruptly enriching themselves.
I mean, time is going really fast, but we need to talk about the NLC. One of the stories that came out from after Joajero came back to Labour House yesterday was much ado about nothing. Was this much ado about nothing, or was there some kind of justification to the behavior of the NLC, when Joajero was called in for questioning?
I think the Nigerian police overblew they blew the situation out of proportion. From what I've heard, I know the Labour House very well. It's a multi-story building, about 10, 12 story. That's where you have Citizen FM.
Yeah.
I've been there severally. So they had a tenant who runs a bookshop.
Someone rented a bookshop.
Somebody rented a bookshop.
Yeah.
And this is the person that is involved in terrorism financing.
And he's the one that is a foreign national.
That is a foreign national.
Okay.
Why will you now rope in the NLC president as if he is actually the one that is doing that by himself?
But that cannot be all the information.
It may not be all the information, but you see, information management is very critical. And you don't toy with an organization like NLC.
So is police supposed to tell us every, well, quote and unquote every, because some part of this information now, it doesn't add up to people who have heard only this part. They'll think, is that enough to invite? There is more.
Do they know more that led them to their behavior?
Well, we can't tell everything now. So what do we do in that scenario? If they say, well, it's a security matter, it's under investigation, what do we do?
Well, no, Chamberlain, what I felt should have been done by the police is not to sensationalize the whole thing. First, you went there around 8:30, 9 in the night.
When people are supposed to have closed, right?
Ransacked the place. And that was during the End Bad Governance protest. It happened during that period, early in this month. And NLC said, I mean, we were not the organizers of End Bad Governance. You have given us the minimum wage that we requested. So we have nothing to do with this End Bad whatever. Then you say, it's one of your tenants we are after. If you are after the tenants and you have incriminating evidence, all you need to do is to have tracked this person, picked him up, and maybe lead him to his bookshop to raid the place.
How about this? Hypothetically, we're not saying that this is what's happening. What if whether it's IRT or whichever agency investigating, what if they've been able to link or see that there's some association between the individual and NLC themselves? Would that be justified to invite him for questioning?
Yes.
Assuming that were the case, without conceding.
It's not out of place to invite any individual for questioning. But you should not put that person on media trial or trial by the media. And I think that's what the police was more or less trying to do.
I thought it was the media that went to ask the police, what's going on here? Why did you do it? Then they responded. Should they not have responded to the inquiry from media?
No, it's not like they should have responded.
Are you sure the out of proportion is not being blown by NLC?
Oh, there you go.
Well, to the best of my knowledge, if the police has a case against somebody, you don't give that person 24 hours. There is no warrant of arrest in the first place. I recall the day the first PPRO came here on Seun Okibale's show and PoliticsToday. And when he said, okay, was there any warrant to go? And he said, oh, they are covered by the law. You know, they don't. It's not in all instances that they must have a warrant of search warrant or warrant of arrest. I think when you are dealing with a very sensitive organization like NLC, you know, that represents a very critical demography in Nigeria, you need to exercise caution. Okay. More so when there is no love lost.
Well, so some lawyers disagreed with that position. They're saying, look, that's private property. You can't just barge into people's property and for your reason, which is not at least getting a warrant. That's the purpose of getting a warrant.
That's what I'm saying. I'm also leaning towards that. Okay.
Ayo is going to follow up on that particular narrative. Probably if he wants to go to maybe doctors, you never know. Ayo.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Mr. Ojo, well, Chamberlain told you earlier that he can neither confirm nor refute what you asked the other time about whether or not he has bulletproof vehicles. I can neither confirm nor refute either. But there is something that I would like you to speak to. Something, when he asked you a question the other time about what is the responsibility for states in this, and you said something, and I'd like you to understand. I'd like to understand it. When you said, don't let's blame the victim. Are the states the victims?
No, Ayo. I think that you took my comment out of proportion. I was referring to individuals, family, and the ordinary citizens as the victims. And I was able to further establish the fact that the government across the 3 tiers have not done enough to secure. I mean, Section 14, subsection 2B of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria said security and welfare of citizens shall be the primary purpose of government. So a government that cannot protect its staff cannot be said to be in full compliance with that provision of Section 14, subsection 2B. If I, as a medical doctor, will still be looking over my shoulder as I attend to patients, if I don't feel secure in the premises of the hospital where I work, or even where I live, then government has not fulfilled its obligation. So it's not like the state, whether state government or federal government, is a victim. No, they are rather the one that is inflicting this on us. And I said something. If we need to have a police post at our hospitals, well-resourced, have CCTV cameras in all the consulting rooms, and across the most doctors are living within the hospital premises, or some doctors live within the premises of where they work because they could be on call. So if you provide adequate security for them, and they have sense of sense that okay, their lives are not endangered, they will be able to put in their best. But situations where you have to look over your shoulder, you start having psychological evaluation of your patient, whether this could be a bandit, whether this man could even, I mean, we have seen, even beyond banditry, we have seen situations where patients and families of patients beat up medical personnel.
Well, you know, not to distract from the issue. My apologies, Mr. Ojo. Not to distract from the question is, what is the responsibility for the state governments? It wasn't always like this. There were times in this country, and I'm not just talking about Lagos or any other part of it, in the entire country, there were times when you could walk easily and freely at 2 a.m., 2 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, you're walking free. You're not afraid that anything was going to happen to you. It's all been in this country. And there are those who have pointed to the fact that the collapse, so to speak, of the local government system was responsible. Do you agree with those who say that the local government, administrations and system could have, been able to prevent some of these unfortunate situations we have on our hands?
Maybe that could be part of the solution, Ayo. Yes, if we have an up and doing local government administration, and we have a grassroots, community-based security outfits that are well-resourced, they can provide additional security to those of the state. You know, the Southwest have to float Amotekun because they felt the federal police wasn't doing enough. But how many personnel of Amotekun do you have in the entire Southwest Nigeria? So if we have functional local government administration, they could also come up with, in the 60s, we have NA police, Native Authority Police. So we could also think of bringing it back to have additional layer of policing, community policing. So that is where it could be part of the solution. But you see, it's not just established. I'm at a quandary. Early in the year, it seems like we are on the verge of having state police. But it's off the radar now. after one or two, state National Economic Council meeting, nobody is sure of where we are with the establishment of state police, and this has to be expeditiously tackled. Because I agree with you, I was born in the 60s. I knew what sense of security was. In those days, we don't have much, but we never were afraid of the dark. We walk around, even going to church, going to vigil wasn't a problem. Today, people go to vigil at their own peril. So it's part of the challenges of modernization and civilization. But you have to rise up to the occasion. The point that has to be emphasized is that we are no longer in those yesteryears. And contemporary challenges have come up. People now hero worship money. If you don't have money, people don't believe you are successful. I mean, I listened to an analyst on another TV station, and he said, one guy that was one of the kingpins of who abducted someone in Kogi State, told his family that he's a businessman and he's doing contract. And then when he was intercepted, they had him saying to his wife that, okay, they are about to pay me the money for the contract. I will come and refurbish the house and all of that. That is to tell you, it's just in a bid to satisfy, needs.
It also speaks
to went into crime because they don't want to be seen as a failure.
It also then, raises questions about trust between the people and the government. It raises the question again. Now, over time, security operatives, beg your pardon, trade unions such as the NERD have come to believe and conclude that, look, unless we use this method, government doesn't listen to us. Now, earlier on, the NERD would, of course, confirm that the federal government had made some efforts at rescuing some situations. For instance, there was a time, I think it was August this year, just this same month, that the resident doctors at the Federal Medical Center organized a demonstration to demand the release of Dr. Popola. But we also remember that 20 medical students from the University of Maiduguri and the University of Jos were kidnapped and released. There was also a Dr. Stephen Eze who was kidnapped and eventually released simply because the NMA, was going to go on strike and all of that. So it begs the question whether or not government has a system, and I'm specific to those whose responsibility it is to prevent and not just, follow this kind of situation on our hands.
I quite agree with you 100%. Prevention is easier and cheaper and better than cure. That is an English axiom, Prevention is better than cure. So, but how much of that attention do we have from our government? What our governments have done at the 3 tiers of government is to securitize themselves and their own families. So the rest of the country, gets the short end of the stick. So, I mean, kudos to former President Muhammadu Buhari for setting up a police equipment trust fund. And we don't know how much of intervention police equipment trust fund has been able to do. Several other states have floated police equipment trust fund. But I think we need to do a lot more to invest more human and technological resources in the fight against crime and insecurity in this country. Because you can't rely on old methods of fighting modern crimes. Modern crimes, obviously, I mean, in 15 years ago, you and I don't have mobile phones. People were not transacting businesses on phones. But today is the commonplace. The cybersecurity has become a serious challenge. Ransomware is also very big outside of this country, where multinational corporations are forced to pay ransomware to some hackers and all of that. So it's a big global challenge, but it affects us more because many of us are poor. Many of us do not have sufficient resources to protect ourselves as we would like to, and that the state doesn't seem to be able to do so much. So we need to reprioritize and recalibrate our security architecture to give us a sense of security.
Just one more thing before we go, less than a minute if you will. Mr. Michael Joffa, former DSS operative, has said, look, they should liberalize the gun laws. Honorable Adeogun 2 years ago, thereabouts, said, look, they need to revisit these laws. Senator Onyenwoko this year says Nigerians should be allowed to carry guns. Considering the challenge we face today, should we then say, look, there's a lot of light and small weapons in hidden places. Why don't we just revisit this and allow Nigerians to bear arms in their houses for protection? In their houses. Would it be a good idea?
No. As far as I'm concerned, it's not.
We should allow ourselves to be kidnapped in our homes?
No, it's not like allow yourself to be kidnapped. Do you know, for you to resist abduction, you must have superior weapon. You have one pump action gun. These people came with...
You do?
My neighbors have one multiplied by 6.
Are you so sure that your neighbors will be courageous?
If the law allows it...
Don't look at it from an elitist point of view. Do you know how challenged America is with the state of
I'm not talking about open carry.
No,
I'm talking about in
shooting.
Your house.
How do you then restrict people to only carry it? Before you know, people will carry it in their cars and they are angry with you.
The law is saying in your car. If you say in your house to protect yourself from this.
Let's not solve one problem.
So how do we stop ourselves from making that from our homes?
I mean, communal efforts.
You just said security is not working.
No, it doesn't seem to be working because it's not yet, we've not been able to fine-tune the communal nature of what needs to be done. I don't believe liberalizing small arms and light weapons. In the first place, how many people can afford to buy the gun, even if you liberalize? Don't forget, you have to also buy the bullets. If you use up the bullet, you have to go and buy. Then, do you have savings enough to buy?
You see the people the police parade. They are not elites. You see them, they have fabricated ones locally. They use them regularly. So it doesn't have to be the type that you get. But we'll get your points. You think no, but hey, I don't know what you think out there, really. I should get people to send us their response. Well, it's time for business this morning. Thank you for coming on. Mr. Jide, always a pleasure to have you on. Let's do business now.